X exclusives is what I like to call it. Games that were once exclusive to one system now spreading the good word around town. Many don't care for exclusives as they believe that's suppressing innovation. If Nintendo just released their games on the PC, I'm sure two of your problems would be solved. See, if we didn't have to deal with the graphical caps on consoles like the Nintendo Switch and everything just released on high-end PCs that everybody owned, well, your copy of Loco Roco would look a whole lot better. Plus, it's good for the consumer. The more options, less reason to buy a console that has nearly all the same features, same specs, same games as the one you already own just for one title you want. Let them go all over the place. Oh, hey, my wife is fucking everybody in the neighborhood. Good for the consumer. And the biggest supporter of this movement is easily Microsoft. Nowadays, they publish a few select titles on both Nintendo and Sony's platforms, but they've been at this for longer than you may think. What? Microsoft, the best of entertainment pack for Game Boy Color. A collection of casual games you'd find on Windows PCs. We got Free Cell, Minesweeper, Ski Free. Some serious classics anybody with a Windows PC from the 90s and 2000s would remember being pre-installed on their computers. Now playable on the same hardware as... take your pick. This is bizarre to look back on, but keep in mind, Microsoft wasn't a competitor in the console space yet. It's like how Sony technically published some games themselves on Nintendo systems prior to the PlayStation. Doesn't make it any less interesting. Hell, they did a few more Game Boy Color games, another entertainment pack release, 6-in-1 puzzle collection, and Microsoft Pinball Arcade. These may all be just Game Boy Color versions of crazy simple pre-installed Windows games most people play when there was nothing better to do, but these games were iconic time wasters for a reason. As basic as they were, for a brief moment, they kept us from thinking about war. So having these on the go to whip out at a moment's notice, it makes a ton of sense. Connectimals on the iPhone. How was it a Connectimal then? So one of the big games Microsoft pushed alongside the Kinect peripheral for Xbox 360 was Connectimals. Interact with a virtual pet with the aid of the Kinect motion sensing camera. A year later, a version for mobile phones released, and the reason I haven't brought it up until now is I've been trying to figure out my response to this ever since it happened. I finally did. I don't know. You can't use the Kinect here. Why is it still called Connectimals? You know, Microsoft has a bit of history releasing or at least licensing their games for release on handheld platforms. They may have purchased the developer Rare, who made countless games for Nintendo, and while they could only make console games for the Xbox line, they could still develop some Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS titles, albeit not published by Microsoft. Viva Pinata Pocket Paradise. That was a trip to see. It may be its own original game for the handheld, but it's still a Microsoft-owned series on Nintendo, which isn't so wild anymore. In 2014, Microsoft bought out the company Mojang, developer of Minecraft, a game already on numerous platforms, a game promised for release on competing platforms, and Microsoft pledged to keep Minecraft on all of them, while also expanding to new territory. Some call it an invasion. Yeah, taking Minecraft Wii U Edition, or PlayStation 4 Edition, Vita Edition, new 3DS Edition, whatever, turning them over and seeing Microsoft Studios on the back was surreal. And later on, when Mojang updated the game, you could sign into your Xbox account on the Nintendo Switch version of Minecraft and get Xbox notifications on that platform. Minecraft was simply too big to keep exclusive to one platform, though. Sure, Microsoft could have very easily delisted and recalled all the other versions and make the series an Xbox exclusive. However, Minecraft didn't become the best-selling game of all time by limiting its reach. This game's accessibility and far reach were too important to give up just to try and sell a couple million extra consoles. And if anything, I think this made Microsoft far more comfortable with releasing titles on competing platforms, which they already were a bit. This is something they've always done. I mean, Microsoft Office released on the Mac. Point one for Scott. Hell, even Halo 1 released on the Mac. Microsoft Game Studios logo on the packaging and all. With the type of company Microsoft is, focusing on services and applications like this, it makes sense to widen your market by releasing versions on competing hardware. And while it took them a while to fully apply that thought process to their video game division, they finally started to with select titles. Cuphead was one of the first major Xbox One releases to appear on Nintendo Switch and eventually the PS4. Though it's not a Microsoft published game, they did help out with the initial release as it was a timed exclusive. Super Lucky still went multi-platform as the enhanced new Super Lucky's Tale, no longer published by Microsoft, but the Ori series received Switch ports, and it says right there on the Nintendo eShop, Microsoft Studios. Oh boy! We truly live in a different time now. I mean, Microsoft never had any obligations to put these games out like they did with Minecraft. They legitimately put Ori and the Blind Forest on Switch just because it made sense. This is a 2D action adventure game that felt right at home on a Nintendo platform. Honestly, I bet it did better on here than it ever did on Xbox. And since Microsoft acquires loads of studios, even after their purchase, they have prior commitments to release their games on other platforms, and thus, the Xbox logo appears on PlayStation once more. Psychonauts 2, developed by Double Fine, which became an Xbox Game Studios team in 2019, was originally crowdfunded and promised to get a PS4 version. Hey, with Minecraft, you kinda have to dig for the Microsoft or Xbox logos. Psychonauts 2 on PlayStation 4, front and center. One of the first things you see, or one of the last if you have a soul. I'd still do a double take if an Xbox logo appears on PlayStation and vice versa. Hell, in FIFA and PS4, I'm seeing Xbox logos on the jerseys. That ain't right. But hey, I guess Sony doesn't care. Hell, some of their biggest exclusives for PlayStation 5 were made by Xbox Studios. Yeah, similar to Psychonauts 2, Microsoft purchased ZeniMax, who owns Bethesda, who owns numerous other developers who made games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. Initially, PlayStation 5 exclusives. Yeah, the deal to make those exclusives were inked before the Microsoft acquisition, so technically Microsoft published 2 PlayStation 5 only games, even if they would eventually come to Xbox. Doesn't matter, Microsoft's making money regardless, especially considering how not only did Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo release on PC, pretty much everything they release does. In 2016, Xbox Play Anywhere launched, which was an initiative by Microsoft to put basically all of the Xbox games they were releasing on both Xbox and personal computers. I mean, Microsoft owns Windows, so regardless, they're not losing money here. It's the consumer who gets to ask now, how do I want to give Microsoft money? There were the console exclusive defenders critical of this back then, how people had no reason to buy an Xbox One anymore because nearly all of its exclusives were either to eventually receive Windows ports or got Windows versions day and date with the Xbox release. I think at this point, it's fair to say, while there is some overlap, the PC audience and console audience are pretty damn different. Sure, there would be some people willing to buy an Xbox One that ended up not, considering many games released on PC, so they just played them there. But there are still millions upon millions of people who only play on consoles. The game also releasing on PC will not change their minds. Because have you ever tried using a PC? I know I haven't.